Hello everyone, Dr. Sutter Caton, physical therapist here with Vive Health. I'm looking forward to sharing all my knowledge with you and I hope you enjoy. So before you get into some stretches to work on the ankle and the calf flexibility, it can be beneficial to start with a little bit of soft tissue massage. And so this massage stick works really well, but it can be as primitive as a rolling pin. It can get the job done. So what you're gonna do here is at first just kind of some light strokes going the length of the muscle. I call this kind of scanning. So we're looking for any areas that seem a little tighter or you have a little bit more tenderness to them. And as you continue to pass along the calf, you can add a little bit of more pressure. If you find a spot, so I found one on the outside of my calf here, I can kind of hold my pressure there for a little bit and see if I can't get that to calm down a little bit. Another technique you can do when you find a spot is to pin it down with the stick, and then you can pump your ankle back and forth as you hold the pressure on that spot. So generally I like about 10 good solid passes, and then once you've kind of done those and you have an idea of where the tightness is more isolated, then you spend about 30 seconds to a minute really working out those areas. So now I'm going to show you a nice ankle stretch for your calves to work on improving dorsiflexion of the ankle. So dorsiflexion is when the toes are coming towards you. So I have the stretch strap here looped around the end of my foot. I'm going to let my leg out. I'm not going to lock my knee out. I'm just going to have kind of a gentle bend in it. And then I'm going to pull on the strap, pulling my ankle towards me until I feel a bit of a stretch in the back of the calf there. I'm gonna hold that for at least a minute, and some techniques you can do once you've held that stretch for a minute to get a little bit more out of it is I can actively pull my ankle deeper into the stretch. So now I'm using the muscles here in the front of my shin to pull the toes towards me along with the strap helping. And you can also gently kind of push into the resistance of the strap for about 10 seconds each way. And then you'll find you can even pull yourself a little bit deeper into that stretch. So the next stretch here is going to work on inversion of the ankle or supination motion. So that's when the toes are turning in and the inside of the foot is kind of coming upward. So I still have my stretch strap here looped around my ankle, but this time, as you can see, the angle is a little off to the side versus straight on in a dorsiflexion stretch. So the motion I really want to do here as I pull that is feel that stretch along the outside of the calf this time. So like our other stretches, we want to hold for at least a minute, and then some techniques you can do once you're in the stretch to get a little bit more out of it and get a little more active control over the range of motion is to first use the muscles to pull myself deeper into that stretch, meaning I'm trying to actively turn my foot out even more in the same direction as I'm stretching. Hold that for about 10 seconds, and then you can try to go the other way and rotate the foot to the outside, going against the stretch. Hold for about 10 seconds, and then go back to the very first stretch, and you'll find usually you can get a little bit more range of motion that way. So this next stretch I call a kneeling dorsiflexion stretch. So it's good to start with that strap stretch or the sitting down version of this to work on that flexibility first. But I like to combine that with an active or a functional movement to really make sure that we solidify the range of motion that we gained with the stretch. So in this one, you're going to be kneeling. If you're on a hard surface, it's nice to put something under the knee. You can do this up against a wall as well, but a chair works just as well. So what I'm going to do here, I'm going to shift my body weight forward until I feel a little bit of a stretch in the back of the calf. So some things you want to look out for, it's very easy to compensate and make the wrong motion with this, especially if you're very limited, is I want to come straight on, but what can happen a lot with people with poor ankle flexibility is they come forward, my arch can flatten, my foot can kind of rock in, and I'm really faking the motion that we're trying to get out of the stretch here. So make sure that you're going straight on and you're not feeling your foot shift back and forth as you do this, if that happens, you've probably gone too far. So you want to get the most out of it with the least amount of effort. So I'm leaning forward. If I go so far that my heel rises up, once again, I've gone too far because now we're not having that same stretch in the back. So one more time, leaning forward and coming out of that. It's a good idea to do that about 10 to 15 times to really solidify the range of motions that we've gained and start to train the nervous system to use that range of motion in a functional activity. So this next stretch, and also we're going to turn into an active exercise, is aimed at improving the internal rotation of the hip. And so the hip range of motion, especially internal rotation, is super important for not only the hip joint itself, so preventing osteoarthritis, hip impingement, things like that, but as we look downstream to the knee and the ankle, we find that those often are where injuries occur because of the lack of internal rotation at the hip. So lacking this motion puts that knee into a position that you can more easily tear an ACL or a meniscus or have other issues or sprain an ankle. So it's often overlooked. A lot of people, we look at ways to improve external rotation of the hip, but internal rotation often gets ignored. So what I like to coach is have some sort of object between your knees, and this is just to prevent compensation and make sure that we're stretching and strengthening what we want to. This works pretty well. A yoga block works well. Even something as simple as a folded up towel works just as well. So just something that you can keep pinched between your knees that is there to remind you if the knees start to flare apart. So this pad works well. A towel works, but I have our stretching strap here, so I'm going to use it. You're going to hook it around the foot or the hip that you're targeting, and then pretty straightforward. Give a little pinch to that block. You don't have to try to crush it, but just enough that the knees don't separate. And then I'm going to take my strap and I'm going to rotate out as high as you can. I'm a little limited in my hip internal rotation personally. Normally people have about 45 degrees or so. It depends a lot on things they did in their youth or even has a genetic component. But I'm gonna stretch out my foot as far up as I can, and I really wanna feel it kind of deep in the hip joint. So things I'm looking for compensation-wise that may prevent somebody from feeling this stretch in the right spot or not getting the most out of it that they can is, one, the reason why the pad's there is a lot of people without it will kind of let the whole leg open up, and now we're working a different range of motion, a different direction that we're trying to. So by keeping that block pinched, I'm gonna make sure my hip stays where it is and doesn't swing out. Another thing I see people do is they hike the hip, so they might start to rock their body to the side to try to get that higher. So I tell people you really wanna keep your weight on the same cheek of the side that you're stretching. And so once you've held that stretch for 30 seconds to a minute or so, some ways you can get a little more out of it is to, one, actively try to lift that foot higher under your own power, meaning not by pulling it with the strap, but by the muscles of your hip. So pulling more into that stretch. And then you can also go the opposite way and try to rotate the foot rather to the starting position, but holding on strong to the strap to prevent it. Another great exercise to pair with this one, or that you can do and get a lot out of even without the stretch component, is you keep that block there, and now we're just gonna turn it into an active range of motion drill. So now I'm bringing that leg out, looking for compensations, keeping my weight over to this side so I don't hike up, not letting the leg swing out. Hold for a second and come back. I hope you found the video helpful, and thank you for watching.